Welcome back to my another video. You are watching now Sci-Fi Stories HFY YouTube channel. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon for my latest videos on my YouTube channel. Like, share and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.
The Galactic Conclave had never seen anything quite like the ship that dropped out of FTL on the edge of Catharan space. It was small. Embarrassingly small. The kind of vessel that the Drovari Empire used to ferry dignitaries between orbital stations, not the kind of craft a civilization sent across 40 light-years to make first contact with the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy. It bore no visible weapons arrays. Its hull plating was thin, almost negligible by conclave standards. There were no deflector shields cycling in standby mode, no torpedo tubes locked behind armored bays, no point defense turrets sweeping the void. Admiral Venthok of the Catharan Defense Fleet watched the vessel approach on his tactical display and felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 centuries of military service. Genuine confusion. They sent one ship, his aide, Commander Drillix, said flatly. I can see that. One unarmed ship. I can see that as well, Commander. Drillix was quiet for a moment. Do you think it's a trick? Some kind of stealth vanguard? Perhaps the weapons are concealed beneath. Scan it again. They scanned it again. And again. The results were the same each time. The vessel, designated the UNSS Pale Meridian, carried a crew of 12. Its cargo manifest, transmitted openly and without encryption on all standard conclave frequencies, listed diplomatic documents, cultural archives, a collection of what the humans called gifts, and one individual listed simply as Ambassador Dr. Yara Osei, First Contact Division, United Nations of Earth. No weapons. No escorts lurking in the dark behind it. No fleet massing at the edge of sensor range. Just one woman, 12 crew members, and a ship that the Drovari would have laughed at. Open a channel, Admiral Venthok said. Dr. Yara Osei had been preparing for this moment for 11 years. She had a doctorate in xenolinguistics, a second in comparative sociology, and had spent 4 years helping decode the Catharan signal that humanity had intercepted in 2271. She was 43 years old, stood 5 feet 6 inches tall, and had, by her own admission, the kind of face that people trusted instinctively, warm brown eyes, an easy smile, and the particular quality of stillness that came not from passivity but from deep, deliberate calm. When the Catharan fleet, all 47 warships of it, materialized around the Pale Meridian like a closing fist, her crew went tense. She could see it in the set of their shoulders, in the way Chief Navigator Tomas Reyes gripped the edge of his console. Yara set down her tea. They're hailing us, Communications Officer Amara Singh reported. Put them through. The face that appeared on the view screen was not human. Admiral Venthok had 4 eyes arranged in a horizontal band across a broad, gray-plated face, a jaw structure that suggested his species had evolved from pack hunters, and an expression that Yara had spent months learning to read from intercepted conclave diplomatic feeds. That expression, right now, was somewhere between suspicion and bafflement. You are the vessel Pale Meridian, he said. The translator rendered it in flat, serviceable English. From the species designated humans. From the planet Earth. That's correct, Yara said pleasantly. And you're Admiral Venthok, 7th Catharan Defense Fleet. I've read about you. Your handling of the Outer Reth Corridor dispute in 2268 was remarkably restrained, given the provocation. I admired it. Silence. Venthok's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A Catharan tell that Yara knew indicated surprise. You are alone, he said finally. We are 12, she corrected gently. And we come to request formal address before the Galactic Conclave. Earth has prepared a petition for associate membership. Another silence. Longer this time. You approach the conclave, Venthok said slowly, as if choosing each word with surgical care, with no warships. No armed escort. No weapons visible or concealed. You are aware that 7 civilizations have attempted to petition the conclave by force in the last century. I'm aware. And you are aware that the Conclave's charter requires a civilization to demonstrate its capacity for self-preservation before membership consideration? Yara smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was the smile of someone who had anticipated this exact conversation. I'm aware of that provision, Admiral. I'd like to discuss what self-preservation actually means, if you'd permit it. They permitted it, if only because no one in the fleet could think of a reason not to. The Pale Meridian was escorted, gently, bewilderedly, to Conclave Station Orith, where the full governing body of 31 spacefaring civilizations convened in their great amphitheater of layered stone and light. Yara walked into that chamber alone. She had been offered a security detail by the Conclave's own protocol office, a customary gesture, and one that every other petitioning species had accepted. She declined. She walked in carrying a leather satchel, wearing a deep blue formal jacket with the Earth sigil on the breast pocket, and she stood at the center podium beneath the gaze of creatures that represented thousands of years of interstellar civilization and looked, to every observer in that chamber, completely at ease. Archmediator Solon, whose species had helped found the Conclave 800 years prior, leaned forward in the presiding seat. Ambassador Osei, you have been granted one standard address period. Humanity's petition has been reviewed in preliminary session. There are questions regarding your civilization's failure to present military credentials. The Conclave Charter, Article 9, Clause 4, stipulates. With respect, Archmediator, Yara said, I'd like to speak to the spirit of that clause rather than its letter, if the Conclave will indulge me. She reached into her satchel and removed a small device. She placed it on the podium. This is a data core. It contains a complete record of human history, wars, famines, extinctions, recoveries, failures, and achievements, spanning approximately 200,000 years of our species' existence on Earth and 60 years of our presence in space. I'm not going to summarize it. I invite any member civilization to review it in full. She let that offer settle over the chamber. What I will tell you, she continued, is that humanity has been to the edge of extinction no fewer than 6 times in recorded history. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars that killed hundreds of millions of our own people, environmental collapse, and the particular madness of self-inflicted near annihilation. We are not here today because we are the strongest species. We are not here because we are the most technologically advanced, the longest lived, or the most naturally gifted at survival. She paused. We are here because we are, without any qualification, the most stubborn species our planet ever produced. Something shifted in the chamber. It was subtle, the way attention changes quality when it transforms from polite observation into genuine listening. You ask us to demonstrate self-preservation, Yara said. I would argue that this, she gestured at herself, at the room, at the single small ship waiting patiently outside, is the demonstration. We did not come here with guns because we do not believe this encounter requires them. We came here because we believe in the Conclave's founding purpose, that the stars are large enough for all of us, and that the civilizations who reach them are better served by conversation than by conquest. We are betting our petition and frankly our safety on the possibility that the Conclave still believes that too. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, from the delegation of the Myra T Collective, a species known for their deep reserve and their near 1,000-year membership in the Conclave, came a sound that the translators rendered, after a moment's processing, as the Myra T equivalent of slow, deliberate applause. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. It was not a quiet debate. The Drovari delegation argued loudly that humanity's arrival without military escort was either an insult to the Conclave's security protocols or evidence of profound strategic stupidity, and that neither quality was desirable in a member civilization. The Veth sovereignty agreed, adding that any species incapable of threatening its neighbors could not be expected to contribute meaningfully to collective defense agreements. Yara attended every session. She sat in the observers' gallery, took detailed notes, and did not appear bothered in the slightest. On the second day, during a recess, a junior Drovari attaché approached her with the barely concealed hostility common to his species. Ambassador, he said, the Drovari delegation finds your presence here insulting. You come before the Conclave as if you have already been accepted. As if your admission is a foregone conclusion. Yara looked at him with genuine interest. Do you have family, attaché? He blinked. What? Family? Children, perhaps? Or the Drovari equivalent. I confess I'm still learning your kinship structures. I have a hatchling cohort, he said, thrown entirely off balance. Would you send your hatchlings into a new situation carrying weapons? Or would you teach them to introduce themselves first, show good faith, and see who the other people in the room actually are before deciding whether to be afraid of them? The attaché stared at her. That is a completely different situation. Is it? She smiled and went back to her notes. On the third day, she was called to address the chamber one final time, to answer specific challenges raised by opposing delegations. She stood at the podium and responded to each objection in turn, carefully, specifically, without condescension and without retreat. When the Drovari representative raised the defense contribution question, she answered with projected timelines for Earth's shipbuilding capacity over the next 50 years. When the Veth sovereignty questioned humanity's willingness to honor conclave treaties, she cited, chapter and verse, every treaty Earth had maintained with its own rival nations over the last 3 centuries. And when Archmediator Solon asked the final question, the one that the whole chamber had been building toward, she was ready for it. Ambassador Osei, if humanity is admitted to the conclave, and the conclave is threatened by an external force, what will humans do? Yara was quiet for a moment. Not uncertain quiet. Thinking quiet. Archmediator, she said finally, I would refer you to the data core I submitted on the first day. Specifically, I direct your attention to the section on a conflict humans called the Second World War. A war in which our civilization, without access to faster-than-light travel or directed energy weapons or any of the technologies we now possess, mobilized hundreds of millions of people in roughly 4 years, crossed oceans in wooden and steel ships, and dismantled 2 of the most powerful military machines our planet had ever seen. She let that land before continuing. We are not a warlike species by preference, Archmediator. But we are extraordinarily good at it when the cause is just. The Conclave won't need to worry about what humans will do if threatened. The Conclave will need to worry about whether there'll be anything left for them to clean up afterward. The chamber was very quiet. Archmediator Solon studied her for a long moment. Then, in a gesture that observers would later describe as unprecedented in 800 years of conclave proceedings, the Archmediator nodded. The vote was not unanimous. There never was in the conclave. 7 civilizations abstained. 3 voted against. 21 voted yes. Earth became the conclave's 22nd associate member on the 14th day of the 3rd month of 2289. The ceremony was brief, formal, and watched by 9 billion humans on live broadcast across every network on Earth and in every colony from Mars to the outer belt. Yara Osei stood at the podium again, this time to receive the membership token, a faceted crystal that refracted light differently depending on the angle, a conclave tradition meant to symbolize the many perspectives of a unified body. Afterward, in the reception hall, Admiral Venthok found her standing alone by a viewport overlooking the station's exterior dock, where the Pale Meridian sat in a berth flanked by warships 3 times its size. I have a question, he said. Of course. He looked at the small ship for a long moment. Were you afraid? When we surrounded you? Yara considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. Yes, she said. Absolutely. And yet you showed none of it. Showing fear to people who might interpret it as weakness seemed counterproductive. She glanced at him. I was afraid. I was also certain. Those 2 things aren't mutually exclusive. Venthok was quiet. Then, there are those on the conclave who believe your civilization is naive, that your arrival without weapons was recklessness disguised as philosophy. And what do you believe? The Admiral's 4 eyes studied her with the particular attention of someone reassessing a thing they thought they understood. I believe, he said slowly, that a species willing to walk unarmed into a room full of strangers and argue for its own worth, rather than simply demonstrate its capacity for destruction, is either very foolish or very dangerous. Yara smiled. Why not both? For the first time since the Pale Meridian had dropped out of FTL on the edge of his patrol sector, Admiral Venthok laughed. It was, by all accounts, the beginning of a long and complicated friendship between humanity and the Ketharan people. And it was the moment, though none of them knew it yet, that the Galactic Conclave began, slowly and irreversibly, to change. Not because humanity had the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons or technologies that outpaced every other member civilization. In the years that followed, other species would realize that humanity had all of those things in reserve, quietly, patiently, waiting on the shelf like tools that hadn't yet been needed. But that was not why the galaxy changed. The galaxy changed because humanity had sent one woman with a leather satchel and the unshakable conviction that the truth, plainly spoken, was the most powerful thing in any room, in any galaxy. It changed because somewhere in the long, brutal history of a small blue planet, a species had learned at great cost that the most dangerous thing you could do in a room full of armed strangers was refuse to be afraid of them. The Conclave, over the decades that followed, found itself asking questions it had stopped asking centuries before. Questions about what its founding purpose actually required. Questions about whether strength had always meant what they assumed it meant. And when those questions got difficult, when old alliances frayed and new conflicts threatened and the machinery of interstellar politics ground toward confrontation, they kept finding, somehow, that a human was already in the room. Usually without weapons. Always with notes. Frequently with tea. The stars, it turned out, had been waiting for exactly that.